this is just part of that. And, to keep pulling this back to, 2024, you have an opportunity to disrupt this now because you have such broad dissatisfaction with the two parties. And in RFK, I do see, for all of his faults, and there are many, and they are severe. And anybody who follows our work know that we've spoken out against RFK's stances, not just on Israel Palestine, but he flip flopped on abortion rights. He flip flopped on police reform issues.
He doesn't support universal health care. He's not.
No, he's not even for a public option. I mean, he gives you basically the Obama line on healthcare, which is, if we were starting from scratch, we'd do single payer, but as it is, we have to work within the system, which I don't really know how you square that with his, very, very intense critique of big pharma, which I think is mostly right. But I don't know how you can have such a critique of the pharmaceutical companies and not see the solution right in front of your face. Well, the only way to really fight that is to socialize healthcare. I don't know. Like I said, there's a lot I don't like about him.
Yeah.
There's a lot I don't get about him. But maybe it's because he's a Kennedy. He seems to have a message. He seems to have a purpose in the campaign. And with a theme he's running on now is that the country is more united than the media would have us think, and he's really running on a restoration of American liberalism. That's really what he's trying to do, it seems like. He's trying to save liberalism from the excesses of capitalism, which I don't particularly think is possible, unfortunately, but he is running on a sort of restoration of a certain American spirit that is compelling, and it's especially compelling when your other two choices are Joe Biden and Trump. Biden, who does not believe in America. These neoliberal globalist Democrats do not believe in countries. They do not believe in national identity. Countries to them are just lines on a map that dictate where their goons can do business and how, right? That's all a country is to these people. Trump, on the other hand, takes it to the other extreme of, blood and soil, right? Nationalistic to the point where it becomes inhumane to the outgroups, right? But those are your two options on offer. So, like, if you care about America, if you actually consider America to be a place, a physical place, when faced with the option between Biden and Trump, you kind of have to go with Trump. But on the other hand, you don't really want to go with Trump because there's a very ugly side to his brand of patriotism, right? Which is hyper-nationalism. Kennedy can kind of thread that needle between the two of them, which is, yes, we are part of an international community. Yes, we want peace somewhere, right? We want peace in Ukraine, not necessarily peace in the West Bank, not necessarily peace in Iran, right? So he's messy on that. Obviously, I'm not here to stand for RFK, but he does represent that middle ground where, like, yes, this is our country. We can be proud of our country, but we have to keep peace. Like I said, I wish he were better on peace everywhere, but that's a message that he's crafting, and he seems to have a strategy to really build an ideologically diverse coalition. I mean, it is amazing when you look at his platform, pound for pound. The guy is a fucking liberal. I mean, the guy talks about civil rights. He talks about Native American rights. If you look at his platform, you would not think this guy has high favorables among Trump voters. You really wouldn't, because his platform is basically a liberal platform. It's not a right-wing platform. He's he tacks to the center on the border, which is politically wise in this current climate. Whatever we feel about, the walls and everything like that. Look, I mean, the other stuff, I mean, you guys are demonetized already, so I don't have to be as careful.
Please.
But some of the medical freedom stuff that he pushes also has crossover appeal. I'm not saying I endorse all of it. I read his book. I thought there was a lot of good stuff in it towards the beginning, and then it veers off into some other stuff that I think was a little bit more insane. But I think generally his attitude that the pandemic did not have to be handled the way it was handled, especially in those early days. We did not have to be so apocalyptic in terms of what's going to happen to you. I think there were definitely approaches. Again, I still have to be somewhat careful because we are here in East Berlin. That's what I call YouTube. There were ways we could have handled that that were forfeited to serve the interests of people who stood to make a lot of money on other ways that we did eventually handle it. And so I think a lot of that has appeal to a lot of people on the left and a lot of people on the right. So he is definitely positioning himself to take a lot of votes from Biden and a lot of votes from Trump. I ultimately think that he will take more from Biden than from Trump. I know that's an unconventional opinion because people think that he has higher favorables, but he does have higher favorables amongst conservatives than among liberals. But the reason I think he's going to hurt Biden more than Trump is because Trump has a much more solid base of support than Biden.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Like Trump's base is so much more loyal to Trump than Biden's is to Biden. Biden never really had a base.
No.
And so I think there are a lot of people who could defect to RFK, especially if Biden collapses to the point where I was telling my wife the other night, I'm like, these fucking shit libs might have no choice but to vote for RFK if they want to stop Trump, because Biden can just crumble. Like Biden can just very quickly collapse into nothing. Right.
Literally.
Where like, if they want to stop Trump, hey, listen, if you're so afraid of Donald Trump, you're going to have to swallow what you don't like about RFK and vote for him anyway, because he might be literally the only choice.
The one thing I do like about him that I did like from the very beginning, and again, this is one of those things that concerns me for his safety. He speaks out against the deep state. He speaks out against Vanguard. He speaks out against BlackRock. And, now to be challenged. So he has challenged the deep state. He has challenged the big three investment owners of the universe. And now he's stepping up against the Democratic Party. So he has like the trifecta of crosshairs as far as I can tell. And yet he also has said very clearly that he would pardon Assange, he would pardon Snowden, all of these things. That's a big deal to me. So because I haven't heard anyone else between, in the Democrat or Republican parties talking about that.
I think what a lot of voters
have you?
No, well, certainly not the Assange stuff. I mean, Trump had the opportunity to do it, and he pussied out, as I figured he would.
If there is one thing that cannot be denied is, and this is why I do think, you don't like my music. A bunch of our supporters, again, are definitely, very progressive left. And the issue of the vaccine is a big one. I'm very anti-mandate, but I'm very civil libertarian. So that speaks to, I got the vaccine, but I can also respect if a person doesn't want to get it on whatever grounds that is.
We don't support bans and mandates.
And so once it was proven that you couldn't stop the spread, no matter what you did, you might slow it, whatever the hell that means. At the end of the day, it's not a true vaccine. It doesn't eradicate the virus, which is what the polio vaccine does, which is what the measles vaccine does. I don't know how many people know how long it takes to really patent and mass produce and effectively utilize a vaccine, but it usually takes a minimum of 5 years. So the idea that you were putting something together in 10 months and all of a sudden everybody's supposed to trust it. First it was Trump's producing it, so don't trust it. Then it was Biden's in the White House, so trust it. There is that huge problem. And I do think that there is a much bigger, we're still stuck in this world, especially being in Florida, red, New York, blue, where you're still listening to the echo chamber of the red and blue divide. If you're on the red team, no vaccine or no mandate or whatever.
It's very tribal.
Those on the blue, take the vaccine, shut the hell up and take the boosters and don't ask questions and listen to Big Brother. So then you really have where the country really is, which is at least 50% on paper. It's probably a lot higher than that because I guarantee you there's a lot of people in the blue and red team that really don't want to be a part of them anymore. So their attitude is, if you want to get the vaccine, great. If you don't, that's fine too.
I can't believe we're still talking about this.
So we're talking about that. Well, I'm just trying to.
No, I mean, in general, are people still talking about
Of course, because RFK is running, and the more he becomes a commodity, the more dangerous he's going to be to the establishment, and they're going to try to use that to peg to him. And so what I would say.
They use it. That's a key point, though. Don't talk past that too much, because that shit is not even on his website. Like, he's not trying to run on that. Now, of course, he was gonna. I mean, this is the thing. RFK is a head scratcher too, because he gets very indignant when people bring it up as if the establishment was going to give him a pass on it. Like, well, what did you think? Were you stupid? Well, you think they're not going to bring that up? Like, of course, that's going to be what they use to go after you.
He needs to understand, and I think he does. and I kind of got this from when he was interviewed on Rogan about, I want to say like, it was probably like 6 months ago, but I kind of got the impression that, yeah, he's willing to martyr himself like his father and his uncle did. Like I really got that vibe that
he's
if I have to do this,
people, man.
And the thing that's interesting that I don't think people realize about him, that they're not emphasizing to really get into his mindset, he's not just 70 years old. He is 70 years old, and he comes from one of the most privileged families on the planet. He has lived 3 or 4 lifetimes. Like at this
Peter
point,
thinks he's ready to go. He's old enough. He could sacrifice himself. Don't worry about his safety. Screw Secret Service for him.
This is totally different. No, I don't say that he wants to die, but I think that he's made his peace with God, if you will, that if this is what it ultimately comes to, there's already been one attempt on his life, and he's not even really out there as the threat that he could become as a candidate. You know, they thwarted one attempt. The White House will not give him service. You have to remember that his father and his uncle were killed in their mid-40s. Like, they were young men. He has lived almost a generation longer. So he's going out there now, and he's willing to say that the CIA murdered my father and my uncle.
That's a pretty big thing to say, man.
Of course it's a big well, yeah. But this is the other thing that he taps into that Cornel doesn't, and this is why I think he's better positioned to make a bigger impact. And this is not an endorsement of him over Cornel. You know, I'm not going to go there, but you know, he is better positioned because I think one of the real macro issues of this cycle, and this is why Trump is dominating the Republican field, and Ron DeSantis with his anti-woke shit is not really gaining any traction, because I think the real issue here that is the weaponization of the state against the people. There is a broad feeling amongst the general public that the government has turned on them. That's what the censorship is all about. That's how they perceive the immigration issue. That's how they perceive the Ukraine war. That, okay, now, like, just the ultimate slap in the face to be shipping tens of billions of dollars at a clip to Ukraine, to serve, you know, whatever hegemonic power people feel is sort of presiding over them. This has been a sentiment on the right for some time, and I think it's been a sentiment on the left for some time. But that's really becoming the main issue with the Trump indictments and the prosecutions. Like, there is a sense that the government is not on the side of the people anymore, and RFK's messaging really kind of does address that in ways that only Trump's does. Outside of his, Biden is part of the problem, and I'm sorry to say, Cornel doesn't seem hip to that. I mean, I don't really sense that Cornel has a critique of censorship, a critique of surveillance, all the infringements onto, you know, civil liberties and stuff like that. And so, you know, I think that RFK is sort of more tuned into the zeitgeist in that way, and that's what is going to make him very, very threatening, especially if it's, like I said, if it's Biden versus Trump. Because for people who are not so dug in ideologically to the right-wing program, RFK is a good kind of red pill alternative to Trump. Now, a lot of Trump's base are right-wingers. So, like, when RFK says, I would sign an assault weapons ban if it made it to my desk, well, that's a non-starter with a lot of the Trump base, right? So it's not like he's just going to completely cannibalize Trump's base. But there are a lot of Trump voters who, you know, vote for Trump just to throw that brick through the window. Well, now there's another brick you can throw through the window without all of the ultra right-wing shit. Now you can basically throw a liberal brick through the window. Because like I said, the guy, if you read the platform, he's basically a fucking lib. He really is.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.